Good morning. You're now listening to Kingston Community Radio, airing on FM 92.5 and AM 920 WGHQ, Kingston, New York. This programming is brought to you by our listeners and corporate underwriters who are interested in presenting local community radio. The opinions expressed on this program do not represent those of Hamel Broadcasting or Kingston Community Radio. Listeners are encouraged to send in $10 per month to help bring this program to you. Mail your contributions to Kingston Community Radio, Post Office Box 4364, Kingston, New York 12402. For more information or to donate online, visit our website at mykcr.org. Good morning, this is Dan Gatis, and this is another Medical Monday, and thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being with us and sharing the morning with us. Monday, August 9th, 66 degrees right now here in Uptown Kingston, and it's going to be very cloudy today with a 20% chance of a rain shower, slight chance of a rain shower today, a high of 84. Tonight, a few clouds, a low of 66. And then Tuesday, during the day, it's partly cloudy with a high of 87. Tuesday night, a 50% chance of scattered thunderstorms in the evening with a low of 70. And then partly cloudy the rest of the night. We'll be right back.
Thanks for starting your day with Kingston Community Radio on 920 WGHQ AM Kingston and 92.5 W223CR FM Kingston, New York. Magic 92.5.
Jill, why don't you tell the class what you did this weekend?
Well, my dad and I went in search of some magical minnows and found a zillion of them in the stream from our lookout rock. Then my sister and I escaped from an evil slug king and went back to my super twig fort for safety. Then we told stories till it got dark, and the Big Dipper led us all the way home.
Wow. Where were you, Jill?
We went to the forest. It's not that far away.
Ask your parents to take you and your friends to the forest this week. It's closer than you think. Check out discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Everyone is talking about healthcare these days. America spends twice that of other developed countries on our healthcare system, yet our health ranks near the bottom. How can we stop spending so much and getting so little? By shifting to a system that gives more patients access to strong primary care. Primary care can help make America healthy again. To learn more about the benefits of primary care, visit www.healthisprimary.org. This message is brought to you by America's Family Physicians.
Hi, this is Eleanor Arrow from the town of Ulster, and I support Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
And again, thank you for being with us here at Kingston Community Radio, AM 920 and 92.5 FM, and streaming online at mykcr.org. 331-9255 is your call-in number, 331-9255. And we'd love to hear from you today. This is a Medical Monday, and Dr. Eric Stanberg is in the on-air studio. Good morning.
All right, good morning. Welcome to this morning's show. I'll be here at 9 a.m. Robin Baker will be joining us. We'll be covering various medical topics. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, please feel free to call us. I believe our number is 331-9255. All right, I've been practicing that all week. Dan's making some adjustments there.
You're okay?
Yeah, I guess I'm all right. I usually pull the speaker up over here.
Oh, yeah, let's do that.
All right.
Call.
There we go. All right, so I kind of go through various topics to put on the show today, and I try not to repeat stuff that maybe we covered, like a curriculum, but every now and then I do kind of bring stuff up again because I think it's relevant, and it's very important in my job to review stuff in case it comes up. I worked urgent care yesterday, and some things kind of came up as well. So you refresh your memory. There's only so much I can cram into this brain, and I think people feel similarly. I think it's good to have a physician or healthcare provider that likes to read and review and stay up to date, rather than one that maybe gets a little stuck in their ways. I did work urgent care yesterday, and a lot of observations regarding what's going on with COVID in our community. So we will be covering that. It is still important and relevant to review that. But I thought we would just start with a discussion of weight loss. And by weight loss, I mean unintentional weight loss. Last week we had some wonderful guests on who talked about helping people who want to lose weight and do other things for their health in a very positive way. But what do you do when someone's not planning on losing weight, but they are losing weight? Well, it's amazing how it comes back to the basics. It always starts with what's called a history and a physical. It starts with a interview of the patient and then a physical to see if any clues can come up. So when I see a patient and they come in with weight loss, and sometimes it's something that they don't notice. I notice it during a physical or just a follow-up visit. Starts with a very open-ended question. How are you feeling? Are you feeling tired? Are you having any aches, any pains? How's your breathing? How's your gastrointestinal tract? Any problems urinating? Are you having any kind of heart problems, rapid heartbeats? Because the list of medical problems that could cause this is rather long. So it starts with an interview of the patient and overall how they're feeling. Good morning. It's a beautiful scarf you have on.
Well, thank you.
Yes. And we're talking about unintentional weight loss.
Okay.
Okay. So, and then part of the history is also reviewing the patient's story. What are the medical problems? Are they on any medications? Are they up to date with relevant screenings? Unfortunately, unintentional weight loss is a symptom of cancer. So the first thing I want to ask someone, not the first thing, but when I'm reviewing the history, are you up to date? If you're a woman, have you had a mammogram? If you're a smoker, there's a biggie. Have you had some sort of lung cancer screening? Have you had appropriate colon cancer screening? Again, if you're a woman, are you up to date with gynecologic health, particularly cervical cancer screening? And for men, even understanding it's controversial, even prostate cancer screening is always relevant.
You feel that's controversial?
Prostate cancer is. And I'm going to we will be having on a urologist in the near future to kind of help review this subject because it is relevant. We never really proved that prostate cancer screening has the same effect and value that things like breast cancer screening and colon cancer screening have. As a matter of fact, the CDC recommendation, or the the Preventative Services Task Force, that I kind of USPSTF, I usually bring up here. Sometimes kind of gives a wishy-washy whatever type recommendation for prostate cancer screening, that the doctor is supposed to engage in an informed conversation with the patient and explain the pros and cons of screening, and based upon that, a decision will be made to check someone for prostate cancer.
Is that because there's a lot of false positives and a lot of extra procedures and things are done based on those results?
Yeah. There's some basic questions like when should someone be checked for cancer? And it ties into our subject of weight loss. It has to be a fairly common cancer. For example, someone comes in and says, I want to be screened for adrenal cancer or whatever. It's just not common enough. There has to be a benefit of screening. Just picking something up early make a difference. And that's one of the questions in prostate cancer. We have not really proven a benefit. Prostate cancer is very slow. If men live long enough, most of us will get prostate cancer in some form. And then finally, is there a good way to screen that is, not particularly invasive and of value, or the test easy to interpret? And the PSA is kind of non-specific. PSA is the prostate-specific antigen. It is, think of it as a chemical in your body that is made by your prostate. So if it's elevated in your bloodstream, it may be consistent with having prostate cancer. But as men get older, the prostate just kind of gets bigger. So men can also have a condition called BPH, which stands for benign prostatic hypertrophy. And because the prostate's getting bigger, the PSA can go up for that reason.
But it's benign.
It's benign.
Hence the B.
Hence the B. And you could have some chronic inflammation in the prostate called prostatitis, and even just kind of sexual activity. And some people feel even having a prostate exam, that a doctor would do in the office, and then they have the blood test after that, might lead to having an elevated reading. I'm not so sure that's ever been proven, but anyway,
It's
so
a
that
theory. It's just a theory.
yeah, a lot of things we have are theories. Anyway, so that's kind of it in a nutshell. Is it a good test? It's not an invasive test. It's not a particularly costly test. It's a blood test. But is it good? Is it accurate? Is it sensitive and specific at picking up prostate cancer? And is there a benefit of having prostate cancer picked up early? Those are the questions that have never been conclusively answered. If you ask most urologists, they understand these caveats with the test, but I think at the end of the discussion, they will recommend that a man get the test. The current recommendation for when a man should get a test varies. The guideline I usually stick with is 55 to 75. Men in that age range should have an annual PSA. Understanding caveats. Some people think testing can start at 55 and end a little early at 70. Beyond 75, you're really starting to get into diagnosing something that will maybe never have a effect on the patient, or something that a lot of other false positives as well. And then we didn't really go into like what happens if the test is abnormal. You gotta usually then go see a urologist. You might just have repeat testing. We kind of backed off on how sometimes how quickly we have to work on this. Sometimes the simple strategy is to just recheck it in 3 months or something like that. But ultimately, a man might have to have a prostate biopsy, which is a procedure, and procedures has a little discomfort to it. So you see how it kind of begets some things that might not be valuable.
And if you were showing signs of this, would you unintentionally lose weight?
Well, if prostate cancer is rather advanced, if it's kind of, it's like a lot of other cancers, it will stay localized to the prostate and then at some point start spreading, particularly to the bones. So yeah, weight loss could be one of the symptoms. All right. So we were talking about the importance of keeping up to date with cancer screening when evaluating someone with unintentional weight loss. And then we do a physical exam. Well, it's kind of obvious. Physical exam always starts with a vital signs. That's why they're called vital.
How many are there?
Well, it depends on how you count them, but it's usually a temperature, a blood pressure, a pulse, a respiratory rate. Those are the basic four. But then you have weight and height. They sort of kind of count. And then you have, we all have the pulse oxes. You put a little, something on the finger there, and I don't know how it does it, but it tells you what your oxygen is. Man, that is like the most amazing technology I look at. How does that thing know?
A little clip?
Yeah, a little blue light is going to tell you what your oxygen is. But it does. There was controversy. You remember how, kind of getting off subject a little bit, but how pain was kind of labeled as the fifth vital sign, probably about the late 90s, early 2000s. That was, and then kind of led to, pressure on the provider to kind of address the pain, and is kind of one of the many things that kind of steamrolled into overprescription of opioids. And anyway, that's a little sidetrack because pain is probably not a good vital sign for one very basic reason. Vital signs are supposed to be objective. Pain is subjective. Yes, a smiley face. Dan is throwing some smiley faces. So, something objective is you measure it. Someone has a pulse. That's not something that is open to the discussion. Whereas how much pain you have is a subjective symptom.
It's on a scale, right?
Yeah. All right. So after doing the vital signs it's kind of amazing how simple it is. You just kind of look at the person. Some people look quite well. Other people don't. And are they looking like maybe they're unhealthy? And you just kind of start with the top of their body and proceed downward ears, nose, throat, feel around the neck. You want to see if there's any lumps or masses, lymph nodes, the lumps. Look in the throat, particularly in smokers, things like throat cancer can show up. Do a good listen to their lungs. Listen to the heart. With the heart, you're listening to whether or not the heart is rapid, because one of the things we'll get to as a cause of weight loss is a thyroid condition that might also manifest as a rapid pulse. And you want to know if there's any murmurs. People can have kind of something called endocarditis, and I had a patient with that recently. And that can also kind of just cause kind of not feeling well for a couple of weeks and then some weight loss as well. I want to do a good abdominal exam. Can you feel the liver and spleen? You really should not normally be able to feel these organs, so if they're enlarged, it suggests maybe there's a problem. And generally, you want the abdomen to be kind of soft, that you're feeling around for masses. You want to check for lymph nodes in the groin. And then also usually an extremity exam, see if there's any edema. Depending upon time or whether or not someone's up to date, a more thorough exam. A woman, for example, should be up to date with her gynecologic health and should have a breast exam and a mammogram, or at least just a mammogram. We had Dr. Kersey on a couple weeks ago who talked about the value of doing both. And that kind of comes back to making sure they're up to date with screening.
Yeah.
Okay. So basic lab work for this problem is starts with a CBC, which is a complete blood count. We're looking for abnormalities of the white count. If it's high, if it's low, if it's elevated, it could suggest an infection of some sort. And then we're looking at hemoglobin. Anemia is a clue. Anemia really needs to be explained and properly treated. I think we've talked about that in other mornings. But if someone has iron deficiency anemia, for example, that you have to, first and foremost, make sure that colon cancer has been ruled out, because that is one of the classic ways that colon cancer will present. Platelet counts can also give you a clue if they're high or low. And generally, if someone's losing weight and they have a problem, have a medical problem that has yet to be diagnosed, the platelets might be elevated. Platelets are also what's called an inflammatory mediator. When your body's experiencing inflammation, things might change. The white count might go up and the platelets might go up. And then we do just a general metabolic profile, which gives us a look at electrolytes like potassium and sodium. And those could be relevant when working up certain problems like with the adrenal glands. And also gives us a look at the kidney function. People with kidney disease, some of them can manifest as like kind of a wasting, losing weight. And also with that panel, you usually see liver enzymes. They'll give us some clues as well. Thyroid testing is relevant and usually helpful to do. An overactive, not underactive thyroid, overactive will classically present as kind of weight loss. Everything is kind of speeding up, the metabolism, the pulse. The patient might be a little shaky, a little anxious, a little sweaty, and then the basic blood work might show an overactive thyroid gland. That could fool you sometimes, because some people who have an overactive thyroid will have hyperphagia, which is a nice way of saying they eat too much. So, that old idea, every now and then I'll have a patient who's gained some weight and I'll run some thyroid tests and comes back showing an overactive thyroid. And the patient's like, how come I'm not losing weight? So it becomes kind of a little bit of a chuckle.
Causes them to eat more?
Yeah.
Because their metabolism is speeding up and makes them hungry?
Two tests that I do a lot and I find them helpful are something called a SED rate, or erythrocyte sedimentation rate, and a CRP, or C-reactive protein. These are tests of inflammation in the body. They're cheap tests or basic tests, but they're very non-specific. So if I run these tests and they come back normal, it does a pretty good job of ruling out some things that otherwise might be there, like cancer, for example, or an infection that has to be diagnosed. So I find these helpful tests, and in a couple patients in recent months, I've run them, and they've come back elevated. In one man, the diagnosis ultimately was an infection on his heart valve, endocarditis, and he has been appropriately and successfully treated. The other case is a woman who I ordered some tests on last week, very concerned about. She's having some pain in her lower abdomen and pelvic area, and she just said rate is very, very high. And I'm worried that she has a malignancy in there that hasn't been diagnosed yet. People sometimes ask, hey, how about Lyme testing? Lyme really doesn't cause kind of just weight loss, but, I usually throw it on just to kind of rule it out, I guess, and maybe some other testing. One test that I had a patient recently who's lost weight, and she otherwise is fine. Around 52, really a healthy person, no major medical problems. But she's lost about 20, 30 pounds. I've interviewed her several times, and she said she feels absolutely fine. We went looking, made sure cancer screening's up to date, made sure that she's updated with gynecologic health. She did check in with her gynecologist. They had a full exam and a mammogram. And she came back and it's still going on. So I said, well, we really did the first round of testing, and now we're kind of looking for things that are a little less common. And there's some adrenals. Adrenals come up. You know what the adrenals are?
Kind of.
And the adrenal glands live right next to the kidneys. So that's kind of like adrenal. Renals, you know what I mean? That's because the name is right there where they are. They're actually technically on top of the kidneys. And they're endocrine glands, which means their role is to secrete hormones. Hormones, by definition, are kind of a substance secreted by one organ that is meant to travel to other parts of the body to affect the other parts of the body. Do you know that? So that's kind of what a hormone is. So, for example, the pancreas releases insulin to then go to all the other parts of the body that use that insulin to respond, whether it's the intestinal tract or the liver or some other things. Anyway, so the adrenals secrete three major hormones. One is called cortisol. I'm just getting the simplest term, called cortisol, which kind of is a stress hormone. It's how your body kind of reacts to stuff. And, for example, if you don't have cortisol and something happens, like an illness, your body may not be able to mobilize and respond, and it can be very serious. And a famous person where that happened to was John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy had a illness in the early to mid-50s. He had I believe it was just appendicitis, routine. Even the standards of the 1950s, it was acceptably treated, and he went into crisis with this illness, with the low blood pressure. All those things that get your body into stress mode, get the heart pumping, get the blood pressure up, just don't work because you don't have cortisol. And John F. Kennedy, the story is, I'd have to maybe fact check. I do think it happened. Whether the details, I'm not so sure about, are, got very ill, and almost even, it describes as almost even passing away until they were able to identify it and treat it appropriately. Interesting, right? He also had what's that? Do
you add cortisol, like you add insulin?
Yes. It's actually, once the diagnosis is made, it's actually quite easy to treat. By the way, one of the symptoms of that adrenal insufficiency that John F. Kennedy had is kind of a bronzish complexion, because it's complicated, but it has to do with one of the hormones made by the pituitary, which is trying to symbol the adrenals to turn on or turn off. So John F. Kennedy always did kind of have that, oranges.
Tan.
Yeah, kind of like that. Almost like a little copperish. Would you agree with that?
Copperish.
Yeah, like or bronzish, I guess. Copper or bronze?
Put them up, buddy.
What's that mean?
Copperish.
Oh, okay. Very funny. Okay. All right. So anyway, with this patient, though, I said, okay, we did the first round, and, we're going to just do a basic AM for fasting cortisol level, and it came back at 0. So she seems to have adrenal insufficiency. Now, that still is not enough to make the diagnosis, and the testing is complicated. It's something called a concentropin stimulation test. You kind of run some labs, you give someone this intravenous product, and then afterwards you check it and see how the body's responding. So I'm hoping for her this week to see an endocrinologist in my office. We have Dr. Batamosi, who's going to be seeing her, I think, tomorrow, and we'll work this up, So, but the treatment for that type of insufficiency is just replacement. And we use usually hydrocortisone, which is a type of steroid. And that's about it. Okay, so the adrenals also play a role in salt metabolism. They secrete something called aldosterone. We don't have to get the technical. And then they have a third component that releases some sexual hormones, but those hormones are also made by the genitalia as well. So it's kind of like a little backup strategy that the body has given us, for production of that. But very interesting organs. It's just that it's not that common to have something wrong with them. And it kind of finds its way into the alternative literature too, as well. Well, but have you thought about your adrenals? Take the supplement. I mean, I never want to come down firmly on that stuff. I just don't want someone to get roped into, spending too much money or thinking that they have something
or ignoring something else.
All the above. So let's see if I missed anything. It's really not something we see commonly, thankfully. But, you ever hear of the disease called consumption?
I've heard of it.
That's an old term. That's right. They knew it. It's tuberculosis. Tuberculosis used to consume you, used to kind of eat you up. And we just, in this era where we're debating, public health measures regarding COVID vaccines, you always have to look back on public health measures that have been implemented with tremendous success, and where this distrust of the health system comes from. But aggressive tuberculosis screening has gone, as well as public health measures to cut back on ways that it might be spread, has really led to it really not being a major concern in the United States, except there are people that come from other parts of the world. And also people who are immunocompromised will have increased risk of it. I have a patient who has a lot of autoimmune diseases, so she's on immunosuppressing medicine. And she has not tuberculosis, but something very similar called MAOI. I'm not getting too technical. It's also a bacteria similar to tuberculosis. And it's also seen in HIV patients. Anyway, and it really leads to a lot of kind of wasting of her body mass. Her body mass is very, very low. So what's the take home?
I mean, you can't get employed unless you have a TB test.
Yes.
People are coming in the office every day for TB tests.
And, in recent years, they kind of backed off. Sometimes a form will say to me, does the patient have any signs and symptoms consistent with TB? If not, then, we're going to waive the test or whatever. And so there's still some sort of evaluation that should be done. But yes, a lot of I still have to get one on an annual basis, and that's certainly the hospital requires me to get it. It's probably a state regulation that all employees of a hospital have an annual tuberculosis test.
So when they do the TB test and they kind of poke you, what are they doing?
Okay, it's interesting. It's actually they're giving you a little bit of TB basically, and seeing if your body kind of reacts to it. I hope I'm giving the. It's almost like an allergy test. What does Dr. Reese do in his office? He gives you little shots of
mosquito
bee venom and whatever, and you're seeing if you react. But it's a delayed reaction, unlike what Dr. Reese does, where the reaction can occur within minutes. Yeah. This is a reaction that takes 2 to 3 days. Yeah. So when people it's always interesting in the office, when people need a TB test, they can have it done on any day except Thursday.
Right.
Although, every now and then, there's ways to maybe have it go check that in urgent care or whatever. But generally, you can have it any day of the week except Thursday.
Because you got to come back in 2 days.
Right, Saturday or Sunday, and,
We're not open.
We're not open.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you think.
Oh, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Well, anyway, so the TB screening. So anyway, what's the take-home? The take-home is that unexplained weight loss should be addressed. By the way, there's so much I didn't discuss on this subject. It could just be psychological or psychiatric. Depression will diminish your appetite, although depression can also do the opposite, kind of stimulate someone's appetite. Anxiety, someone's got a nervous stomach, things that are more benign, like irritable bowel syndrome, where someone's just kind of, or acid reflux disease, where they're just not having a good appetite. I mean, there's so many other things we probably could have brought up in this discussion, but I think we covered a lot.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. We'll have to do part 2 in the future. All right, we're going to go to our first break.
Thank you, Robin Baker and Dr. Eric Stanberg. Thank you so much for bringing us around for the 7:30 hour. We're at the bottom of the hour, and you're listening to KCR, Kingston Community Radio on AM 920 and 92.5 FM. My name is Dan Gatis, and it is indeed 7:30 a.m., and it's Monday, August 9th, 66 degrees right now here in Uptown Kingston. Weather and forecast, a little bit of weather and forecast for Kingston and the surrounding areas. Today's very cloudy with a 20% chance of a rain shower possible today, and that's a high of 84. Tonight, a few clouds, a low of 66. Tuesday, partly cloudy with a high of 87, and Tuesday night, 50% chance of scattered thunderstorms in the evening, and then partly cloudy for the rest of the night. A low of 70. We'll be right back.
Thanks for starting your day with Kingston Community Radio on 920 WGHQ AM Kingston and 92.5 W223CR FM Kingston, New York. Magic 92.5.
The Home Energy Assistance Program, known as HEAP, provides both regular and emergency financial grants to eligible households to help pay utility bills. These benefits have been extended through August 31st. The HEAP Cooling Assistance benefit is now open too. Find out if you are eligible by contacting your County Department of Social Services or by visiting the Payment Assistance section of Central Hudson's website, centralhudson.com. Central Hudson's mobile app has a new look. It's the place to view and pay bills with ease. Check your electric and gas usage to better manage your energy consumption to save money. And report an outage, anytime, anywhere. Use the app to easily submit your meter reading to avoid estimated bills. Download it today from the App Store or Google Play. It's free and easy to use.
Hi, this is Scott Harrington from Hurley, and I support Kingston Community Radio because the people need a place to have their voice heard, and it's lost in corporate radio. So please keep listening and supporting our station.
You're with us here at KCR, Kingston Community Radio, AM 920, 92.5 FM, and streaming online at mykcr.org. It's 66 degrees here on this Monday, August 9th. And our call-in number is 331-9255. 331-9255. And let's get back to the on-air studio with Robin Baker and Dr. Eric Stanberg. Welcome back.
All right, good morning. Welcome to the second half hour of this morning's show. Robin was asking about more about adrenal glands, and you can get cancers of the adrenal gland. Thankfully, they are rather unusual. But there is a little girl that the daughter of someone that Robin works with who has a adrenal type cancer.
Neuroblastoma.
And I know very little about it, but she seems. I see the pictures. Such a sweet, beautiful little girl, and the bravery that she and her family are facing this with. So,
yeah, she's 2 years old. I mean, she just had a tummy ache. Yeah.
And why, right? If you believe in God, or whatever, why? Why her? But she's getting very appropriate treatment and excellent treatment, I believe, down in Westchester at the Maria Ferrari Children's Hospital. And we think about her and wish she and her family, all the best.
She's 2, and her name is Natalie.
It's very a lot of people get studies for whatever reason, CAT scans, for example, and it's very common to see something called an adrenal adenoma. Basically, just like a little growth on your adrenal. Adenomas are kind of nothing, but they sometimes have to be, yes, they can sometimes be cancers. Very unusual, probably less than 1%. But so this is one of the examples of how testing kind of begets more testing. It's pretty common for someone to have a CAT scan for abdominal pain, and hey, now your intestines are all fine, but you have something in your left adrenal gland. So now that has to be followed. So we call those incidentalomas. kind of something that is found incidentally. And that's one of the arguments kind of for and against things like Lifeline screening. You know what that is?
Mm-mm.
Lifeline is a company. There's probably other companies, but it goes into things like church parking lots. And for a reasonable sum, does a lot of testing on someone. So it's usually about $150. And they do a bunch of tests. They check your neck with an ultrasound to see if you have any blockages. They'll do an EKG, make sure you don't have AFib. They might do an echo. No, I don't think they do an echocardiogram. They'll do testing of your legs to see if you have peripheral vascular disease, and then they'll do also ultrasound screening for an aneurysm. And they'll quote to stories of somebody who had the test done, and look, we found something. I mean, it's those tests are not invasive and they're not particularly expensive. Generally, we try to not necessarily screen everyone because we're trying to decrease the risk of finding incidentalomas. We're trying to just target our screening towards people in certain categories. So for the most part, I don't like that. Plus, I think the communication, although I guess it's improved, but basically they give you a letter and they just kind of give it to the patient and say, here, show it to your doctor. So then, so they're not doing anything. Now they're just kind of complicating things for me, and I'm the one who now has to kind of explain everything, So that's frustrating because it's, and people can be quite panicked, when they get a little result about a 50% blockage in their left carotid or something like that.
Yeah, concerning.
A couple of weeks ago, we talked about carotid testing and how really generally it's just not recommended routinely. So, the idea of being screened for carotid disease is not necessary. I had something else we were going to segue.
You were talking over the weekend about the subject of primary care.
Yes. Well, it's one of our favorites, and the commercial talks about that as well.
So why do you think they talk about in the commercial, and what is your opinion on the idea of primary care really being the basis of kind of fixing what might be wrong or off balance?
Right.
I think is a better way to say it, in the healthcare system.
Right.
I mean, I'm hearing rumors about it, like this is happening in our own town. We have 2 hospitals. They're right near each other.
Well, they're technically one hospital now.
Right, they're one entity.
Right.
But there's 2 separate buildings.
Right.
Existing buildings, staffed buildings. I don't know, that they have a beautiful emergency rooms.
Okay.
And
They're building that at the Benedictine campus of Health Alliance, a new building.
right.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be beautiful.
I know the old building was beautiful.
Okay. But not state of the art, but.
But there's like rumors of things closing, of staff being fired, of them bringing in their own staffing from their own company, and like losing this community-based, I don't know, there's like a peacefulness of having your own hospital. Like if I got sick, I was born at Kingston Hospital. And if I got sick, I went to Kingston Hospital. I didn't even think of going somewhere else. And nowadays there's like this consensus where there's just a lack of trust in our community hospital. So I mean, is that because of a lack of primary care?
That's a good. Now I see your point.
In spite of it?
Well, first of all, the reasons are multiple about how the dynamic between the people of Ulster County and their community hospital developed, has really been a process that's been about 20, 25 years in the making. But I do think primary care is part of it. Absolutely. You need a basis of primary care physicians and providers to work in a community as part of the medical community and in conjunction with the hospital. And now, there's been this trend that I'm part of private practices really going away and doctors kind of joining up with bigger groups. And I may be overstepping my bounds, but I don't think the directors of Health Alliance, we're going back 15, 20 years, understood this problem, that their primary care base was going to evolve and kind of
disappear.
Through attrition, kind of a baby boomer contingent that getting closer to retirement, and what's going to be going on with the younger doctors. It's really not a viable option for younger doctors to go into their own practice, old-fashioned just hang a shingle. And, the independent practices are getting smaller and smaller. There's a few, and they're great practices. You work for one, and there's, I forget the name of the practice, but Dr. Mandelbaum and Dr. Robbins and Dr. Von Reusner, is that Hurley Ave?
Yeah, that's Hurley Avenue Family Medicine.
Right.
Yeah, that's mine.
Dr. Rose DeLeo. I mean, there are still Dr. Ricardo Esposito. There still are independent doctors out there, but the trend has not been.
But they're a small group.
They're small.
They're a small group, but it seems to have the same kind of paradigm as the larger groups too, but just a little more cellular.
Right. Yeah, and I said that healthcare became a game of gorillas. You had these huge entities that you have to somehow do business with. The big one is the government, Medicare, Medicaid, and then just kind of regulation. HIPAA, requirements regarding everything that needs to be done. Another humongous gorilla is the insurance companies. Another gorilla is the pharmaceutical industry. And the fourth gorilla is kind of a newer one, which is the kind of hospital entity, But by the way, that was a creation of having to, somehow coexist with these other gorillas. When I was in private practice, I was in a contract with a HMO that really was paying a low amount, of money to take care of their patients. And I called them. And I said, because I'd read some articles saying, why don't you just call them and see if you can negotiate a new rate, blah, blah, blah. So I called them, and I finally got someone on the phone, and I said, you're really paying us this, and we would like to ask that you pay us more to provide care. And they basically said, no, that's really our rate. It's non-negotiable. And I said, well, then I think we'll have to drop your patients because, we can't, it's not enough for us to, provide care for this amount. And then when I said that we have to drop your patients, her response was, okay. And then I realized I was just for a while I said I was a gnat. Gnats are kind of like insects that annoy you. I mean, what's an insect that doesn't even annoy you? You just kind of see crawling around and you go, it's not even worth squatting. Let it crawl, not squatting. You let it crawl away. And really, so that's, there we go. I was dealing business with a gorilla, and I was a little inconsequential insect. Not so inconsequential to the patients. And that's another theme, is that as everything in healthcare gets bigger, people within it get smaller. And whether or not it's the patients or the providers or anybody who works within the system.
So how do you, in a community, reinstate trust in your local hospital? How do you get that back?
Yeah. Well, you always try to steer just short of a political line. I think some of the wounds by Health Alliance do seem to be self-inflicted. Abruptly firing people for some, like that. But certainly building a primary care base is important. Patients will accept my recommendation. And by the way, I know the doctors that work at Kingston Hospital and Benedictine Hospital, Health Alliance, they're wonderful, wonderful doctors. They really are. So it's not that. You have to rebuild the Kingston primary care medical community would be one way for the hospital entity to build on. But that's such a project, and I'm not so sure the administrators kind of see that. What do you see when you turn on the television? There was an article, by the way. I'd like to invite this guy on the show, but they're reopening the cath lab over at over at Health Alliance. It was in the Freeman over the weekend.
What's a cath lab?
Cath lab is for cardiac catheterizations. Basically, someone has chest pain, do a stress test, it's positive. The next step is usually a cardiac catheterization. Or if someone's having an MI, you do catheterization. The issue with that sometimes is there going to be intervention? Are they going to be able to place a stent? Or are you going to then have to be transferred somewhere else to have another catheterization? And that's always something, but it's progress.
So who was it? What did you read about this opening?
There's a new head cardiologist that's going to head this cath lab over at Health Alliance. I keep misspeaking, saying Northern Dutchess. So anyway, so you need a primary care. It's kind of like saying, let's have a school system without elementary schools. No one would sit there and say, oh, well, that doesn't make sense. We're just going to start kids at 8th grade. I mean, they got to, start early in a way. Or there's probably some other ways to make the analogy. But the point is, it's a healthcare system, and primary care is important. And primary care is an investment. That's one of the problems that modern healthcare mistakes they make. And it's a long-term investment, So if you bring in a doctor, there's always this kind of, we're going to do this for 2 years, then we're going to see. And a lot of times in 2 years, they're still building, but then it usually leads to a contract dispute and maybe a cut in pay, and then someone winds up leaving, and then they start all over again. It happens again and again and again in my business. No one ever steps back and says, what are we doing wrong here? Is this really helping things? Because, by the way, the organization itself, suffers, because then they have to replace this person, and start all over again. So that's one of the things that baffles me about modern medicine. And the business side of medicine and how doctors are treated. So and by the way, I would say doctors are like, they don't kind of go away. They just disappear in the middle of the night a lot of times. A patient will come into my practice and I'll, who are you going to? Dr. So-and-so. I'm like, well, what happened? And they'll say, I don't know. I just called the office. They said he was gone. It's like, abducted by aliens. The CIA come take them away. It's really a very mysterious process. So this whole kind of segueing into a new situation with the doctors is very awkward. There's a belief in the industry that if you can't tell the patient where the doctor went, you can't. And again, you talk about kind of dysfunctional reasoning.
The theory is that the patients are just going to follow the doctor because they're so loyal to the doctor that's leaving. But I mean, it's really not necessarily so.
Right. To me, a better answer would be Dr. So-and-so is going here. We would be very happy to have you continue to be a patient, and we will arrange an appointment for you to see our new provider, doctor, whatever, and please stay a patient here. Instead, they play this kind of passive-aggressive game of not telling. And it's really very dysfunctional, and it leads to a lot of stress and anxiety with the patient. It leads in disruption of care, because patients can, be in between, kind of in limbo, and actually, can make patients kind of angry, being treated like that. It's just very, I can't figure out where it comes from. It's just really antiquated thinking, Most doctors have non-competes, and I did want to bring this up this morning because our current president is weighing in on non-compete agreements, trying to get the Federal Trade Commission involved in this. It turns out, a non-compete clause, sometimes called a restrictive covenant, is an agreement as part of a contract on some conditions if you were to leave. Usually in the medical world, it means you agree to go this far away for a set amount of time. And the old reason for this was, you imagine an old-time doctor, just some, guy, primary care, a specialist, getting a little busy, maybe getting a little bit older, wants to bring on a partner to kind of grow the practice and, begin maybe maturing and having someone new coming in. And they bring person in, and the person stays for, I don't know if this situation ever existed or was it just based on paranoia, but the person stays for a year, and then just goes across the street and hangs a shingle and says, hi, I'm on my own now. Now they're competing. So it was something that was kind of put in place to prevent that from happening.
It's not new, by the way. It happens in a lot of things, not just medicine.
It does, and that's what
we were talking to our gym trainer, and, sometimes at the gym, there's a non-compete. You can't just leave the gym and like open up a gym next door. You have to go a certain number of miles away to work, and you agree to this. And it's legally binding too. It's not like something you can.
It probably is legally binding. It depends on state to state, but no one wants to wind up in a lawsuit over it. It becomes a war of attrition. Even if it ends in a draw, it just everyone kind of loses. I don't know if anyone's ever challenged a gym trainer, but it's also kind of the one that we're talking about. The duration is not particularly long. For me, it's 2 years, which actually is not particularly long compared to other non-compete clauses. Maybe I'm sorry. I probably shouldn't be saying that on the air now that I think about it. So I apologize because it's tough in the contract, but just in general. And then also, I know someone who worked like in the fashion industry in New York City who left their kind of parted ways or got got severance pay. But severance pay came with a duration. In other words, you see, like that's a two-way street. Here we're gonna pay you for 6 months or 12 months, and you're gonna agree to not go work for another company. So anyway, so the federal government's weighing on these non-competes because it turns out a lot of lower wage jobs kind of have these. Restaurants and other companies say, you can't work. I was reading that article and, oh my gosh, this is horrible. I mean, these people are making $16 an hour. I mean, it really inhibits competition, So, there might be some legal issues about how much power the federal government has to control something that really is done at the state level. But some states have most non-competes, just in medical terms, banned. Some states, California and Massachusetts, are two biggies. New York does not. Other states kind of have some restrictions based on it. Generally, if they ever come to court or whatever, they usually kind of end in a stalemate. Okay, I didn't go far enough away. Here, you got to pay a little penalty. Here you go. Because the judges usually say, they try to have the best interest of the patients at heart. And, and it's interesting, in the legal world, they don't really do things like this. In other words, they don't do it to each other. They, you join a law firm, then go to a competing law firm or start your own, right? And one of the reasons, and I spoke to some attorney friends about this and read some articles about this, is that they really value the client-attorney relationship. That outweighs whatever allegiance there is to that specific law practice. It's interesting, right?
Very.
The law business. The legal world has
the entire law industry does not do non-compete.
I don't.
That's fascinating. You're right. I mean, I've seen it play over. Here in Kingston. Where a lawyer who was at a firm opened up his own office. And I've seen that a couple times, and it's right in the same local area. Right. It's interesting that it doesn't exist in the legal industry.
Very interesting. And again, the reason I was always given was that because they value the attorney-client relationship above all else. So,
back to the hospital.
So yes, they need to recruit, among a lot of other things, but they need to build the foundation of a primary care practice, and they need to recruit. And they need to, and a lot of these companies are pretty good at, it's kind of like you and I always joke about Seinfeld, anybody could take a reservation, it's the holding of the reservation. Anybody can recruit a doctor or another healthcare provider, it's the retaining. Once you get the provider there, you have to kind of understand it's a long-term relationship. And especially people who are like right out of residency, the adjustment could be challenging.
Right. You have to make it, worthwhile. I find that people our age, in our, 40s and 50s, older, value this primary care relationship a lot. It's kind of how we were raised. It's how we were brought up. We just had a doctor, and that's how it was. but I find the younger generation doesn't feel that way. Like a lot of things, I don't know, it's faster. It's like, it's, as long as they can kind of get care when they need it. If they get sick, they don't, for the most part, how often are they, going to the doctor? Not that often. The urgent care model is fine with them. They, I got a tick bite. I sprained my ankle. I don't need like this doctor-patient relationship that I see that my parents valued so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's a couple of basic reasons. One is that they're still kind of young, so they don't, in most cases, they don't have chronic health problems. Let's look at these people in 10 years when they're 40 or 45, maybe, a few of them will realize that they should have a regular doctor. But yeah, you're seeing kind of a push by an industry over the past several decades to kind of almost, or at least replace part of what a primary care doctor used to do with kind of urgent care, and in many respects doing it better. Because, it is challenging to come to my office. You got to make an appointment. Ironically, though, you can go to an urgent care, you can get in line. People can wait a long time at urgent care to be seen. If you make it a 4:30 appointment with me, I mean, maybe you'll be seen at 4:45 or even 4:50. I wish it was closer to 4:30, but still, you're not going to wait an hour. You're not going to wait an hour and a half or 2 hours. But urgent care, this time of year, they're with the COVID surge as well. I mean, they're very, very busy. So there's kind of a contradiction in terms there.
Do you find that people tend to hurt themselves a little more in the summer?
Oh yeah,
yeah. Okay.
We always see, like, at urgent care, the injuries start coming in as the day goes on, the sprained ankle or the laceration, or, I guess, because in winter we're kind of, people still do stuff in the winter, but almost hibernating, yes.
Yeah, the nice days bring in the patients. So also, I just find it interesting that we kind of grew up with our doctors as well. Like, is a 25-year-old patient going to meet a 28-year-old doctor that is, newly out of residency and establishing a practice here in our community, and then kind of grow older with their doctor? I have patients coming to our office now that their doctor's retired, but they were with that doctor for 30 years. I mean, they were the same age as their doctor when they started going to see their doctor. Know what I mean?
Yeah, people say to me, are you, my old doctor, well, retired, it happens, but also they just left. We talked about disappearing in the middle of the night. And I said, don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. I'm a lifer at this point.
But, right, I mean, don't you see, you have patients your own age who started coming to you when,
I was lucky enough to do the residency here in Kingston, and I had, and doing obstetrics was part of the training, and then we had some deliveries. And a few of these families are still part of my practice, and the kids are now 25 years old. It's.
You delivered those babies?
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Just don't know what the trend is, and.
Right, and we really understand the investment that needs to be made in order for this to work, and the problem is multi-levels or layers, and one is the population as well. They need to kind of get it. But we also have to kind of give them they call it a product, I always hate the kind of commercialization of medicine, but I have to give them something that's worth it as well. Dr. So-and-so's my primary, but I can never see her, and she always seems like she's in a rush and doesn't seem to care. By the way, I hear those stories and I go, that's someone who is struggling, with how their practice is, because no one went in this medicine to rush around and not, particularly primary care, to rush around and not spend enough time with patients. We all went into it to take time with our patients. They were put in a scenario where there's, the volume of patients that we have to see, and then what's hard to describe, which is all the extraneous work outside of the visit. The phone calls, the paperwork, the review of the labs, the thing. And that's a source of frustration for patients too. I tell my patients, you should hear from me within a week of getting something done. And if you don't, to be honest with you, unfortunately, that could mean that I never got the result, which unfortunately happens still too often.
Right, in this faxing and emailing error that we're involved in.
And that's the best fail-safe I have, to be honest with you. So I ask patients to call me in a week, though. Got to give a little time. Anyway, it comes back to that kind of, what's the word? The decorum between the doctor and patient.
Yeah.
The two-way street there.
All right, so we'll sum up the thoughts on the hospital when we get back from the break.
All right.
Thank you, Robin Baker and Dr. Eric Stanberg, and many thanks to you listeners for tuning in today and listening to KCR, Kingston Community Radio, WGHQ AM 920, 92.5 FM, and streaming online at mykcr.org. Monday, August 9th, and 66 degrees here, and 68 degrees now here in Uptown Kingston. This last portion of Kingston Community Radio was brought to you by Central Hudson. Today's weather and forecast, very cloudy, a 20% chance of a rain shower today, high of 84. Tonight, few clouds, low 66. Tuesday, partly cloudy with a high of 87. And Tuesday night, 50% chance of scattered thunderstorms in the evening, low of 70. And we'll be right back.
Thanks for starting your day with Kingston Community Radio on 920 WGHQ AM Kingston and 92.5 W223CR FM Kingston, New York. Magic 92.5.
The Home Energy Assistance Program, known as HEAP, provides both regular and emergency financial grants to eligible households to help pay utility bills. These benefits have been extended through August 31st. The HEAP Cooling Assistance benefit is now open too. Find out if you are eligible by contacting your County Department of Social Services or by visiting the Payment Assistance section of Central Hudson's website, centralhudson.com. Electrical fires can be caused by overloaded circuits or outlets, frayed wires, faulty appliances, or deficient cords. This is Central Hudson reminding you, in the event of an electrical fire, call the fire department and let them know it's an electrical fire. Never use water to put out the flames of an electrical fire, as that may cause serious shock. And use only an approved fire extinguisher. If possible to do so safely, shut off the main breaker. Your safety matters.
Hi, this is Dina Roy from Hurley, and I support the Kingston Community Radio, and so should you.
Our call-in line to our hosts and guests is 331-9255, 845-331-9255. You're listening to WGHQ, AM 920 and 92.5 FM, the home of Kingston Community Radio. And it's Monday, August 9th, and 68 degrees now here in Uptown Kingston. This upcoming portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Herzog's. Stop by Herzog's Home and Paint Center in the Kingston Plaza for all of your home building, maintenance, and painting needs, and discover the difference of buying local. Sales are ongoing on their website, herzogs.com. Let's get back to the on-air studio with Robin Baker, Dr. Eric Stanberg, and our birthdays.
Yes. Welcome to the second hour of this morning show, and our cup runneth over.
A lot of people born on August 9th.
We were so happy. Let's see if I got everyone here. Okay, so we have, I believe, three.
Yeah.
So you do one, then I do one, then you do one.
Okay, so please wish a very happy birthday to John Baez from your friends at People's Place. We hope you enjoy your special day. Happy birthday, John.
Okay. Happy birthday, Grandma Mercy Holtz, from her loving husband, children, and grandchildren.
Happy birthday, Mercy. And the third and final birthday for Monday, August 9th is please wish a happy birthday to Janet Sutter from your friends at the Lunch-A-Bunchers. Those Lunch-A-Bunchers sound like they're having a lot of fun, don't they?
They do.
Excellent spectrum of sources for the
yes.
birthdays.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, today's winner of the famous cow pie brought by Boyce Dairy Milk House, 62 O'Neill Street, Kingston, New York, is Mercy Holtz.
Happy birthday!
That really is the high point of my day. Anyway, Mercy Holtz, please. Your loving husband, children, and grandchildren get to share.
What a great name.
This famous cowboy. Yes, Mercy. Not Marcy, Mercy.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, happy birthday, and thanks for sending these in.
Keep sending them in.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, did you want to discuss more about the hospital dynamic?
Well, I feel like it's relevant just because.
It makes me sad because I came to Kingston in '95 to be part of the residency program here, and very proud of the program and very grateful for the education I was given, and it was done among other places under the auspices of what at the time Kingston Benedictine Hospital, wonderful hospitals with thriving medical staffs. So it makes me very sad to kind of see the state we're in. So. But again, whenever I hear one of my patients kind of like express reservations about going to the hospital, I always dissuade them. First of all, I know how hard everyone works there, and so
maybe it's the business end that is not the medical end. I mean, in my own experience, my ex-husband experienced and a medical emergency and was brought to King's Hospital. They took excellent care of him and transferred him where he needed to go. I mean, basically they saved his life and transferred him safely to where he needed to go for surgery. So my confidence is 100%. So.
And likewise, when I had a similar health emergency, same thing. I got excellent care. 2 of my 3 kids, one was born at Benedictine and one was born at Kingston. So it really is, these are special places. So let's hope we're able to work something out here and keep this medical force in the community.
Yep.
It's a big county. I mean, the idea of a county of, I don't know what the population is, 170,000, something like that. Not having some sort of hospital facility is concerning. There is actually Ellenville Hospital as well. It's smaller, but that's still our county.
Yeah, the hospital's thriving, has a great rehab and swing unit there. I mean, very sought after.
We're taking COVID patients. Go ahead.
A relay from a caller who didn't want to go online, but just wanted to thank you when you were in Rosendale with Dr. Deno, how special that was because of the time and energy that you were able to give each patient in that environment.
That's nice. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. We really, Dr. Deno, my partner, he still practices in New Paltz, and eventually we took on a third partner, Dr. Casey. We opened this practice in 2002, and I always just say we were the last of the dinosaurs. We were the dinosaurs that are eating grass in the field while we look up and there comes the meteor to land on our heads. But we really were trying to do kind of a back to the, a retro model. Little doctor's office on the creek in Rosendale, and trying to keep it low key. The office was a little rustic. Wasn't this kind of antiseptic appearance that a lot of other facilities have now, and we did it. It's just that we were kind of always fighting against the current, and eventually, I mean, it's not there anymore. And by the way, that town used to have 2 primary care practices. The one where we were in, and there was Dr. Henriquez was there before we were, and then Dr. Hilmy also had a practice there. And then in Stone Ridge there was 3 doctors, Petrulis, Taylor, and Gregory. They weren't necessarily in the same practice, but they were kind of in the same space. They've all retired, and no one's come to replace them.
The woman also suggested the idea of Dr. Deno coming in for a visit.
I should reach out to my old friend, especially now that we. You don't have to actually come into the office. I'm sorry, to the studio. You can kind of just call in. I'll have to have my agent, my producer, call his agent.
We're getting so big.
Yeah, we're really growing here. By the way, I want to start a Twitter page.
You do?
Yeah, for the Medical Mondays, yes. I don't know why.
Okay. I'll have to ask my kids about how to do that.
Yeah, I'll talk to my oldest son. All right, so yeah, the it takes a lot to build a medical community, and it's going to take some time, energy, and resources. If they're going to bring in new doctors, particularly young doctors, they got to be given not 2 years, but 5 years. That's my opinion.
To establish a practice.
Establish, yes. And you got to play the waiting game. You can't sit there after 2 years and go, well, they're not bringing in enough money, because that's usually what happens. And then, because it takes a long time. Especially if you want to do it right. If you really want to spend time with patients, focus on prevention, focus on building long-term relationships. 10 to 15-minute appointments are probably not good enough.
Definitely not.
Right.
Definitely not. But that's the model. That's what we're up against right now.
Yes, we are. So I worked urgent care yesterday, and COVID came up a lot. Now, where I was working did not have rapid COVID tests, which is unfortunate, but I think there's supply issues, which are beyond everyone's control. We did a lot of send-out testing, and the PA that I was working with, spent a lot of time on the phone calling people with positive results. So it's here. People. I haven't diagnosed a case recently, directly myself. I ran a bunch of tests on people yesterday. Maybe they'll come back positive. Maybe they won't. First of all, it's felt that the Delta variant is around 90% of new cases. So it's really academic. Is this the Delta? It doesn't really matter. The answer is it probably is. And, Dr. Frab was on a couple of weeks ago. He talks about how the virus is a non-sentient existence, but in some way wants to continue to procreate and spread itself. And one of the ways it will do that is by mutating. So that's sort of what we're saying. There will continue to be more variants. We're already talking about the Lambda variant. So I was reading a good article talking about exhaustion. These are from doctor websites. So, of course, they're from doctor perspectives and about doctors. And but this theme certainly crosses over into so many other people. We don't have the monopoly on exhaustion. But the article is specifically about exhaustion about the vaccine, exhaustion about having to explain it to people. And I even, kind of wearing a primary care hat in urgent care yesterday, I brought it up with most of the patients I saw. Did you get the vaccine? And if not, I kind of, told them that I highly recommend it, blah, 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 And
Are you able to give the vaccine at urgent care?
No. And one guy, for example, says, well, I'm still skeptical. And I kind of, again, inside my brain, my eyes roll. Of course, I'm not going to roll my eyes in front of the patient. At least I don't think I did. But what do you mean you're still skeptical? What else is it going to take to get you to not be skeptical? The stories coming out of the southern, Florida and Texas and Louisiana. I mean, these are horrible, horrible stories. ICUs getting filled. Very high test positivity rates. It could not be a stronger correlation between those getting very ill from COVID and having to be hospitalized. Those who are vaccinated versus unvaccinated. The people who are hospitalized with COVID is almost 100%.
Unvaccinated.
Right. I'm sorry, did I misspeak? Okay, so the percentage of people requiring hospitalization who have been unvaccinated is almost 100%. Really, there are some isolated cases, but it's just this is a big, big, big deal, and people have got to get over the vaccine resistance and hesitancy. And yes, we are exhausted because we're tired. We don't know what else we're supposed to say. You're fueling such horrible misinformation. There was an article I read about a 42-year-old father of 4 in Utah, and the article was interviewing his wife and how they used their faith and information that they gathered to choose not to get the vaccine, and Her husband is 42, and he's been on a ventilator in a hospital in Utah for about 3 weeks. And the article, she's pleading with people. She says, yes, trust in your faith, trust in God or whatever you believe, but at the same time, believe in facts. That dichotomy that somehow, it's either your faith or science is, I thought we resolved that one in the 15th century with the Enlightenment. The Catholic Church, for example, at some point kind of embraced knowledge and science and art. That's how you had Michelangelo and paint the ceiling, and Leonardo da Vinci being a great artist as well as a great scientist. Interesting. Anyway, that's a real tangent, but Proud would probably appreciate it.
He would love that.
Yeah. Very, very sad, and I just can't imagine this ending well for this 42-year-old man. Either he'll succumb to it, or he's going to be debilitated for the rest of his life. Father of 4. So she's pleading with people, please get the vaccine. There's many, many other stories like that. Videos of people with oxygen on, from their hospital bed, saying, please get it. I just don't know what else it's going to take. We're so frustrated. What do you think?
Well, I'm for the vaccine, definitely. I mean, we have the vaccine at our office. Our number is 338-7140. You can call. You can get the Moderna vaccine, or you can get the J&J vaccine every day. All day long, we're offering appointments. I mean, it's a doctor's office. You feel more comfortable coming into a doctor's office as opposed to going to the CVS or Best Buy or wherever they're offering it. I mean, call us and get signed up. I have a hard time with people who feel that they're not trusting it, that they don't feel they can't trust it for some reason. There's like an entity behind it that's untrue or against them, or that it's like there's something bad about it. Because for me, even if you're going to make it political, which it really isn't because it's medical,
right?
So it's not political. But if you were going to make a political argument and say, well, the government doesn't have me in their best interest, or doesn't really care about me as a person, the government, I'm making like quotes around my head. The truth is that, I don't know why you would go to a restaurant then, because if you're not trusting, how would you shop at a supermarket? Are you going to eat the vegetables and the fruit that's provided there? Are you going to consume the meat that's under the cellophane in a supermarket? Why are you doing that? Because if you don't trust that your government or the regulations are for your best interests, I don't know why you would do all these other things and not trust this as well. I mean, I'm buying chicken and food at the supermarket. I'm going into a restaurant and trusting that the regulations that are in place are keeping me safe. And so I believe that to be true for a supermarket. I believe that to be true for a restaurant. I believe it to be true about the vaccine. So for me, it's kind of it's all wrapped up into the same thing. Before I worked at the medical office, I worked at a farm not a pharmacy, a farm for about 15 years. And, I see how things grow and how the business of growing food and what it means.
Yeah.
I mean, like a crate of corn, like sweet corn is amazing and delicious. You have to head out to the farm stand and get yourself some corn right now because it's amazing. But if you're commercially picking corn and you're shipping it down to New York City for some reason, and there's a crate of corn and the corn has worms coming out of it,
ew.
It's returned to you. Like it's not a viable thing.
Actually, I've grown up, but I remember when I was a kid sucking the corn, going, yeah.
But the truth is that right? When apples with like worms in them or spots all over them. I mean, so this takes ingenuity and what's the healthy way of treating food so that it's delicious and still pest free, right? So everything is regulated. It's
Gotcha.
all regulated, and I trust that.
Right.
So why wouldn't I trust this?
And there's another element which maybe that's also feeds into our exhaustion, which is obviously they don't trust me. I mean, just that caller, it's very meaningful to hear how much they appreciate what we did. But first of all, I have the shot, so, there's a real disconnect, between, I trust my doctor, but not on this. And we're exhausted.
It's exhausting. I have relatives and friends that are still backing off on the whole thing. It's public safety. And we live through we live with regulations of public safety all day long. If I go down 28, I'm going to drive at 45. It's public safety. These things are in place.
Right, and we said that when we first started to do the show, we were talking a lot about the flu shot, and there was a season where there were more than usual pediatric deaths from the flu, and we were kind of saying it's not just about you. If you really are upset that these kids died of the flu, the best thing you could do is go get your flu shot.
I really appreciate
the concept of herd immunity.
Yeah, there's a commercial that's current right now. It's a medical commercial. It's simply about Bayer aspirin, but what the philosophy behind it is gorgeous. It's not just your heart,
right?
It's the heart. It's all the hearts of people that love you,
right,
as well. And that's a very, very impelling and compelling philosophy for us now with COVID issues.
Mm-hmm.
That's right, and the whole concept of herd immunity. Just to review what that is. It was the first successful vaccination was Edward Jenner in the late 1700s. Cowpox. And the idea if you had 100 cattle and you immunized maybe 90 of them, those remaining 10 were still protected because there was enough immunity within the community. And when the vaccine started to get out, one of the rationales for the vaccine was everyone should get vaccinated before this virus starts to mutate. And that didn't happen. The virus has mutated and will continue to mutate further unless we reach a certain level of immunity in their community. Good morning, caller.
Good morning. You guys do a great job and everything there.
Thank you.
Part of the problem could be also is if you remember early on, before the presidential election last year, is when they was talking about all the Democrats were saying it's a Trump vaccine. We're not going to get it. It's a Trump vaccine. We're not going to get it. I wouldn't get it. I wouldn't do this. To where they started the negative talk back about the vaccine way back then, and that probably hurt a lot of people, affected a lot of people's minds and stuff, and getting it as well. But as far as it goes, I got both of my shots. I went down to Castle Point early in March and April and got my 2 shots. No problems, no ill effects. Where some people was saying where on the second shot they really got sick or got feeling very uncomfortable. But I took both shots, and after the second shot, I had a very, very dull headache. And the only time you thought about the headache, if you knew you had a headache, was when you thought about it. Otherwise than that, no ill effects whatsoever. So, and it's been now, almost 4 or 5 months. I've had no ill effects from it. So, hey, the shot works.
Thank you so much for calling.
Thank you.
And the other problem down south where they're talking about the rise in COVID, look what's coming over the border.
I understand, and I do agree and appreciate your point about maybe kind of a hypocrisy regarding President Trump versus President Biden, and how people feel about things that were said while the vaccine was being developed, and are we then going to trust it or whatever? So I appreciate your point, and I do. I'm glad you got your vaccine, and we appreciate you listening.
Right, and the fact that, hey, people got to keep politics out of this stuff. Hey,
good
it's for
point.
the people well-being, it's for the people good. It'll save lives and everything else because our priest up here in Kingston or Port Ewan caught COVID and lost his life. And so the vaccine does work and stuff because a lot of people have taken it so far, but like you said, we need to get more people to take it, and it's on all sides on the aisle. Both sides are to blame. And hey, let's get the vaccine, get a handle on what's going on, and let's get through this thing.
Right.
We
well
appreciate you
said.
so much. Thank you.
But thank you, people, for being there. And you guys, I've called you a couple different times, and especially when my mom was alive. And you guys always have great information. So I appreciate you being there. Appreciate listening to you guys. So have a great day. Stay safe and stay healthy.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
You know, he makes a point. I mean, getting a little closer to the political end that we try to avoid. But you really kind of a double standard, you know, where people, you know, if President Trump was still president now, would there be a different dynamic going on about who's accepting it versus who's not accepting? And you know, I think we can talk about it.
Right. I mean, he did accelerate I mean, that's one of the things that people are using as their reason to not get it.
Not get it.
That it
right.
was kind of we got it in a hurry, but the truth is that that's something that President Trump was very proud of, and I'm glad that he did it. I'm
Right.
glad he did it for everyone's well-being. And President Trump did get very sick with COVID, and then he did get the vaccine. Like for me. Not choosing to not get the vaccine, if that's your political view, that seems silly to me. So, I mean, I'm just very, very grateful that, you know, there's talk now of if the FDA does approve the vaccine, which there seems to be talk of that coming through pretty quickly soon, that people will mistrust that. And say that not enough time went by, or that there wasn't enough research done. I mean, I don't believe that to be true. Done my own research, and
Right, that's a point I wanted to make, because I was confused too when I first had my first dose, because they gave me a sheet of paper. It is emergency authorized right now. Now, to me, that's a little bit of semantics, you know, authorization versus approval, but full FDA approval has not been granted, and because that's usually a multi-year process, and we had a public health emergency, so it was a non-issue. We couldn't wait. But they are accelerating the approval, and there's talk that the Pfizer might be approved sometime in September, which is just a couple weeks away. And there are a lot of people holding out saying, I'm waiting for it to be approved. I'm waiting for it to be approved. And I'm nervous. And now they're going to, once that happens, they're going to say, well, now it was approved too quickly. You know, so if you're waiting for it to be approved, it's coming. And then if that's what it's going to take to get you to get the vaccine, fine. But don't then find problems with having it get approved once it's approved. Right?
well, it's easy to say.
Yeah.
But people definitely have their doubts. So.
All right. So yes. So the number of COVID. This is from the Freeman over the weekend. The number of COVID-19 cases in Dutchess County has almost doubled since the beginning of the month. According to Dutchess County, it's, you know, as I said, it's already doubled. And the Ulster numbers are at this point not as bad, but generally, you know, we're neighboring counties. So what happens here eventually happens there. So it's important. Let's see, active cases. And Ulster County doesn't report their numbers over the weekend. So on Friday, there were 223 cases. The peak was in January 30th, where there was 2,600 cases. And Dutchess County had around 481.
Right, but we went from having 0 cases.
Right, and Ulster County positivity rate right now is 5.2%, whereas Dutchess County is 3.5%. So, okay. So it's still important, and if you haven't had the vaccine, you really should get it. The reasons to not get it are just not valid. We should, you know, maybe, you know, you and I talk about this, you know, Fauci, you know, or how do you say his name? Fauci, okay. You know, he's a little professorial, little, you know, let's think it through, one hand this, one hand, you know, and sometimes people just want an answer. And maybe we do need to say, look, get the vaccine. You know, I'm worried about side effects. Well, don't, you know what I mean? You know, I heard it was this. Well, that's wrong. You know, we need to be a little more, you know, cut and dry with how we answer our questions sometimes.
Is there any reason why an 87-year-old woman would not would get a stroke if she has somewhat high blood pressure? Would she get a stroke by having the vaccine?
No, I mean, you know, you have to kind of get into that argument of over causality.
That's
you know?
her fear, you know, because
right.
It's a weakness.
Sounds like you heard that story somewhere.
Oh, yes.
Okay. No, you know, she's an 87-year-old woman with hypertension. You know, she could have that stroke with or without the vaccine. So the strokes that came up with the J&J vaccine were really kind of a certain subset of clots, and they were very, very rare cases. So no, I would not think that that's a valid conclusion. That's kind of in the flu season. Hey, I got the flu shot, then I got sick. I've heard that forever.
Right, you might just been going to get the flu anyway. And the flu vaccine never said that you weren't going to get the flu, just said that you weren't going to be as sick probably as you would have been if you hadn't gotten the vaccine.
So let's go to our final break of the morning.
Okay, thank you, Robin Baker and Dr. Eric Stanberg. Thank you so much. It's now at the bottom of the hour, and you're with us on Kingston Community Radio, AM 920, 92.5 FM, and streaming online at mykcr.org. Monday, August 9th, and 70 degrees here in uptown Kingston now. This last portion of Kingston Community Radio was brought to you by Herzog's. Because the colors and quality of paint you choose matters, Herzog's Paint and Design Center, located in the Kingston Plaza, is there for you, offering the largest selection of Benjamin Moore paints and the area's most complete line of painting supplies. Herzog's Paint and Design Center also provides color samples from Benjamin Moore paints, including the eco-friendly Aura line. Color decorating consultants and expert interior designers are ready to assist you in choosing the right colors. Visit Herzog's in the Kingston Plaza. Weather and forecast one more time. Today, very cloudy, a 20% chance of a rain shower, high of 84. Tonight, a few clouds, low of 66. And Tuesday, partly cloudy with a high of 87. Tuesday night, 50% chance of scattered thunderstorms in the evening, a low of 70. Okay, we'll be right back.
Thanks for starting your day with Kingston Community Radio on 920 WGHQ AM Kingston and 92.5 W223CR FM Kingston, New York. Magic 92.5.
Hey, Dad, your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad, your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey, why don't you take a minute? When you help care for a loved one, you give them as much time as you can. But it's just as important to take time for yourself. AARP can help. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Never completely ready to adopt a teen.
For late nights writing English papers.
For your teen's music taste.
For dinners, where they talk more on their phone than with you.
For the first time, they call you Mom.
You're never completely ready to adopt a teen, and you can't imagine the reward.
To learn more about adopting a teen, visit adoptuskids.org.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Cameron Rylance from Kingston, and I support Kingston Community Radio because it's informative.
.70 degrees today, this Monday, August 9th, and you're with us here at KCR, Kingston Community Radio, AM 920 and 92.5 FM, and streaming online at mykcr.org. 845-331-9255. 845-331-9255 is your number to call in. This upcoming portion of Kingston Community Radio is brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank. Many locations throughout the Mid-Hudson Valley, one near you. And let's get back to the on-air studio with Dr. Eric Stanberg and Robin Baker. Welcome back.
All right, thank you. Welcome to the final half hour of this morning's show. This half hour is brought to you by
Boys Dairy Milk House.
And Ulster Savings.
And Ulster Savings.
What's the phone number, Dr. Stanberg?
331-9255.
You were practicing.
The mental block in my head has gone away. So I can now remember that number, 331-9255. All right, so we were talking over the break about some. We have a caller. Good morning, caller.
Good morning. Before when George said about it was a Trump vaccine. I never heard that before at all. He always used to make so light of the virus and say that he's going to turn around when he said it got much worse. And he never wore a mask. And even like met with large groups of people. None of them wore them. I don't even know where the heck that came from.
Yeah, I agree with that. You're right. He did say those things, that it would go away, that's just one isolated case, refused to be seen wearing a mask. But he did also have what they were calling Operation Warp Speed to speed up development of the vaccine. But you're right, that kind of mixed message. By the way, that without getting too far into politics, that might be part of the reason why he didn't get reelected, was that kind of mixed message, which was ignore the pandemic, but I'm doing a lot to help the pandemic. And a consultant in the political world would be like, don't send a mixed message, stay on message. So you're absolutely right. But I just don't want to play that. A lot of the development of the vaccine did occur while he was president, and whatever credit he is due, I guess we should give it to him.
Yeah, right. I agree with that too.
Right, but they're having that motorcycle rally in South Dakota, and watch the news, and they're getting interviewed there, and it's really makes me very, very nervous. But so keep getting the message out. If you know people in your circle who are still dragging their feet about the vaccine,
And it's a shame, and they don't realize how much they're hurting themselves and other people too. My youngest son, he had gotten the virus, and he really was sick. Right, fortunately, he didn't go into the hospital. He did have to go a few times for oxygen because his oxygen level was low, and he had gotten pneumonia with it too, the viral pneumonia. And that was a few months ago, and I about a week ago, and I spoke to him about getting the vaccine, and he's not going to get it. He said he's going to take his chances.
Well, that's unfortunate.
So annoyed with him, so you can't talk to him.
I agree. I would say there. If he were my patient, I would inside my head roll my eyes, maybe out of exhaustion. I had an experience like that with a patient in the hospital as well, where we basically saved her life, over 3 weeks, and I said now in around 3 months she should get the vaccine, and then she launched into a diatribe against the vaccine, and I just felt like, banging my head against the wall. It was really a very unfortunate encounter. But we have to be professional. And that's what leads us to be kind of a little professorial about things. Well, you might want to consider that. We're being very gentle when maybe our reaction should be like, "You're wrong."
Yeah. Sometimes it works better if you're gentle than if you do, because then it becomes more stubborn and argumentative. So.
Well, keep working on him. Tell him he's putting himself at risk. He's putting other people at risk.
Yeah, right.
Plenty of people are getting COVID a second time. It is true. It may not be as bad a second or third time around. And there, that argument over what they call natural immunity. Rand Paul, my friend, Dr. Rand Paul, who obviously didn't attend a lot of lectures in medical school, likes to talk about natural immunity because he had COVID and he doesn't think he needs the vaccine.
Well, President Trump had COVID, and then President Trump had the vaccine.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, keep working on him. Hopefully he'll come around.
Yeah, I hope so, too. And thanks for all you do, too.
Okay.
Really enjoy all your
Thanks for
things you
listening.
give out, all the information and everything. Take care and have a good day.
You too now.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
We're going to talk briefly about a Shingrix, the shingles vaccine. By the way, it's interesting. So when someone gets vaccinated, you're trying to prevent a disease. You get the measles vaccine. You've never had measles, and therefore you're going to get this vaccine, so you never get measles. The Shingrix, which is a brand, is giving you kind of a booster against an infection that you already have had. So it's remember that shingles is a reactivation of the chickenpox virus. When you get chickenpox, it lives in you for the rest of your life. It lives in nerve roots. That's why you only get chickenpox once. But then it can reactivate and along a nerve root.
Mutate?
What?
Is it a mutation?
No. What happens is you get chickenpox when you're a kid. Your body then kind of makes antibodies that are kind of keeping this infection in check. But for various reasons, that antibody level dips down as time goes on. Just age and time, which is one of the reasons why shingles is more common as you get older. Times of kind of stress, like illness, can also lower the antibody level, even like emotional stress. It's kind of controversial. So what the vaccine does is takes that antibody level and brings it back up to a point where it continues to keep the virus that causes chickenpox and shingles in check.
You ever had shingles?
No.
My daughter had shingles once. It was terrible.
Yep.
And when we have patients that come into the office with shingles, they're suffering.
Yeah.
It's bad. What exactly is happening?
Well, the virus reactivates along a nerve root pathway. So it's an amazing condition. It never crosses the midline. You never have shingles on both your hands. You will have it on either the left side of your body or the right side. These nerve roots are kind of from the spinal cord. One goes left, one goes right. And they can be activated along your face, which it can even affect your eye sometimes. Shingles is also called zoster. So the eye is called ophthalmic zoster. It causes a lot of eye pain, and even if it's not appropriately identified, some scarring of the retina. Common site is along the trunk or the thorax. And I had a patient with that yesterday, a man about 78, 79, came in with, once when the rash is there, it's a very easy diagnosis to make. It sometimes has a prodrome where people, prior to the rash erupting, people will feel kind of burning and tingling. So imagine if it's on the left side of your chest. This pain. They go. I've had patients over the years get admitted to the hospital for possible heart attack. Just to have them on day 2 break out in a rash. It's interesting like that. So the vaccine is taking your antibody level and boosting it back up to keep the shingles in check. It works about 50% of the time. Okay, that might sound like a high number, but in that remaining 50%, it really does cut down on severity of the symptoms. For a long time, the shingles vaccine was approved for 50 and older, but for the most part, just being given to people 60 and older. It's kind of I can't really explain that lag, but we're increasing our administration of it in the 50 and older population. I've had mine. Do you have yours?
I just recently had my annual physical, and I was instructed to do so. I have to check on the price of it because it's very expensive if it's not covered. If you're below that age, right?
I don't know. I can't figure this out either. I mean, generally, one of the provisions of the Affordable Care Act was that if something's FDA approved, it has to be covered. But then that's where the pulling the strings and the caveats and whatever come into play. Well, they can cover it, but you have to have the right diagnosis. You have to be the right age, whatever. I don't know. You have to call your health insurance. But it is a recommended vaccine. It doesn't get it's on television and radio, so it is getting pushed. I've had a few patients go, I got that's why you and I were talking about it. I got the shingles vaccine, but I'm not getting the COVID vaccine. And it's like, that disconnect is frustrating to us, why they're throwing down the gauntlet with one but not the other. By the way, when I got the shingles shot, it did have a lot of soreness for a couple of days in the arm. That's kind of your body responding to the vaccine, similar to what I had when I had the first COVID dose. Second COVID dose, I felt pretty sick for about a day. You did too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
It was worth it.
Yeah, it was. You could tell it was there. You could tell it was there and that it was working.
Yeah.
It was working. It was.
I've had some people
not
have
rebooting your body so that you would be, that you were creating the antibodies for. It takes a lot for your body to create those antibodies to
protect you.
To protect you.
Yeah, I've had patients who had no reaction at all. No headaches, nothing. And then they're like, is it working? Am I even responding? They were like so upset about not being sick.
Yeah, right. Well, I thought maybe we would finish the morning. A little too much time here, but
we can do it.
A little levity.
Oh, good.
Yeah, because medicine is actually quite funny.
Oh, hysterical.
I mean, think of the old vaudeville, bit. The goofy doctor. Remember, they always had that. There was a time where you didn't have lights to look in, so you had to use a reflecting light. Your light would be here, and the doctor had this big.
Looks like a CD.
It looks like a CD. It was a mirror that then would reflect the light so the doctor could look in the throat or look in the ears or whatever. But that's a very funny prop that found its way onto, whenever there was a vaudeville act or whatever. The doctor was always wearing one of those.
Right. Now it's just the stethoscope.
Stethoscope also could be a funny prop. So, but just the idea, and then the old vaudeville jokes about the guy says, Doc, when I get this cast off my arm, can I play the violin? And the doctor says, of course. And then the patient says, great, because I couldn't play it before. And then another old classic joke is, I'm afraid to tell you got 6 months to live. And the patient says, but, oh, I'm sorry to hear that, but I also can't pay my bills. So the doctor says, I'll give you another 6 months.
How about, Doc, it hurts when I do this.
Don't
do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So these are just silly jokes.
So the guy gets to live in a whole year so he can pay his bills.
Some of these are conversations. So here's the doctor says, nurse, how is that little girl doing who swallowed 10 quarters last night? And the nurse says, no change yet. I thought that was funny. Doctor, I get heartburn every time I eat birthday cake. Doctor says, next time take off the candles.
All right, these are terrible. This is not going anywhere.
I thought they were funny.
That's good. I like it.
Why did the mattress go to the doctor?
I don't know. Why did the mattress go to the doctor?
It had spring fever.
Is your brother David listening right now? Because this is going to make for some really fun family time.
Did you hear about the guy who lost his whole left side?
I didn't hear.
No, he's all right now. This is one. I was in a band. I've been in many bands. We had a band called Second Opinion, which is a funny line. But this is a classic one where the doctor says, I'm afraid to tell you you're very sick. So the patient says, can I get a second opinion? So the doctor says, yes, of course. You were very ugly, too.
Okay.
All right. Can I do this for 10 minutes?
No, I don't think you can.
That's the doctor's second opinion.
So we were going to name our CD You're Ugly Too. It never got made, by the way. Someone decided to graffiti my house last night. Doctor said, so why are you telling me? Patient says, I can't understand the writing. Was it you? I don't know. That was really not funny at all.
Well, doctors are classically, they have terrible handwriting.
Well, because it should tell you something because we were writing so much.
Now you're not writing. Now you're typing. Typing.
Yes.
Many pharmacists knew everybody's signature. They really did.
Yep. They knew how to read that writing, too.
Yeah, they knew the signature.
Well, this one's a little off color, I guess.
Yeah, don't say that.
Good one, though.
Oh, you got to do it.
I want to, but I'll pass on it.
So tell me about urgent care.
Can I just do one more joke?
One more joke.
Okay. The man told his doctor that he wasn't able to do all the things around the house that he used to do. When the examination was complete, he said, I can't take it. Tell me in plain English, what is wrong with me? And the doctor says, well, in plain English, you're just lazy. Okay, said the man. Now give me the medical term so I can tell my wife. All right, that really wasn't a good one.
You haven't really thought this through. So,
why did the bucket go to the doctor?
I don't know. Why did the bucket go to the doctor?
He had a pale face. All right, enough. Urgent care. Well, again, a lot of COVID and a lot of, inside my head eye rolling, because these are, but a mixture, by the way. A couple people that are, very appropriately vaccinated and they have some symptoms and they want to be tested. And that was responsible, but just a few who, one or two who actually refused COVID testing, which is kind of frustrating because you're in the office and potentially transmitting it, and you really should kind of know if you have it or not. And a few people who, didn't get the vaccine, and when I tried to turn that into an opportunity to encourage them to get it, kind of getting shut down, which was frustrating.
Yep.
Other than that, it was the usual mix of urinary tract infections, abdominal pain, lacerations, things like that.
Is the testing paid for?
It's a good point, and I, I'm trying to figure this out too. We're having, and this is a major problem. Generally, it seems that if the test is done in the context of someone having symptoms, it will be paid for. If it's just someone who was exposed, if it's someone who's traveling, if it's someone whose boss said go get a test, it might not be covered by their insurance, and that's a problem. as I cough.
Yeah. Yeah, I was wondering about that. If that becomes, your responsibility. Because if you're not vaccinated, I think you have to show a negative test for many instances. It's going to be required. Like, you probably won't be able to go to a concert or to, we recently...
Yeah, you and I went to a concert 2 nights ago with Sarah.
And it wasn't good enough to say you were vaccinated. You had to supply your vaccination card. And they took pictures of it. Did you see that?
They took pictures of it?
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't remember that. They took pictures of my vaccine?
Mm-hmm.
Or, and then, again, overreacting with, show me your papers, show me papers. You have to, a kid who might be 22 has to show his ID to get in or to have a drink, or you want to go cash a check somewhere and you might have, there's so many examples of having to do things, to turn this into kind of like a major offense to your rights, and then really go to ridiculously, kind of somewhat offensive conclusions that this has to do with, Jews in Nazi Germany having to wear a star. It's really a very flawed analogy and not well made and not well taken. So I would like to think people would shy away from that one. Look, you're right. Getting the vaccine's a choice. Now, your employer, there might be a change where employers are going to start mandating it. But for now, it's a choice. But it's a choice that comes with consequences. If you don't want to get the vaccine and therefore you can't do something because of it, that's the choice you made. No one's depriving you of it. You're just dealing with complications of your choice.
Right, and the venue where we were that required it, this is their livelihood. This is their business.
Right. They don't want to have an outbreak
stay
there and then lose customers.
Correct.
All right. So another thing to get over, it's not a violation of this is a public health emergency. It's not a violation of your rights. It's the opposite. It's, helping us.
You.
What's that?
Might be saving your life.
Might be saving your life. Might be saving someone else's life. All right, so we spent most of our time talking about weight loss, and I always like to bring back to the subject that we began with, reasons to seek care. Unexplained weight loss is something that should be evaluated. If you're eating better, you're exercising more, that's great. But if you're just kind of losing weight and you're not sure why, some sort of medical evaluation is probably indicated. And it's also a good opportunity to make sure you're up to date with all of your prevention, because that is a big part of what we do. Whenever someone is diagnosed with colon cancer or breast cancer or lung cancer at this point, cervical cancer, these are opportunities missed. So that's just an important take-home message.
We're going to discuss a little bit. We have a little less than 10 minutes left in the show, but we were going to talk a little bit about medications and patients kind of like stopping taking their medications without the advice of their doctor.
Okay. What do you want to say?
Well, I'm just, that happens, doesn't it? Like if someone's on a medication and
yes,
for some reason they just feel like they're getting side effects, or they feel like it's not beneficial, they just stop taking it, or...
Yeah, that could be a problem. First of all, the reason that someone may not be taking a medication, not always the patient's fault. It could be too expensive. And patients are kind of being obedient in a way because they're not asking for a substitute, because a lot of times there's a cheaper substitute for these medicines. No one makes that information available to you. They're like, this one costs you $200 a month, but there's another one that might be only $20 a month, but no one's giving you that information. Or it's not covered at all, or for whatever reason.
How do you, as a layman, find that out?
Well, it's a good question. Sometimes I ask the patient to do some legwork. Call your insurance, call your prescription plan, and say what else is covered.
We have these coupons at the office called Good RX that you can.
Good RX is one way to do it. Good RX is I think Good RX was kind of put there by the pharmaceutical industry to kind of take some pressure off of their crazy prices. But it's a coupon that gives you a pretty big discount. But there still is usually a prescription alternative that's cheaper. So yes, people stop meds for a couple of reasons. One is cost, or they just simply that's not covered at all. Sometimes, yes, there is a side effect. You could be put on a diuretic, for example, for your blood pressure. That might make you pee too much. A lot of times, people just kind of stop for whatever reason. They get tired of it. They, somehow in their head they convince themselves they don't need it, even though the need for the medicine is pretty clear. Blood pressure medicine, for example, and then they come in for a blood pressure check and it's high. And I'll say, well, how you doing on your medication? They'll say, okay, well, I stopped it 3 months ago. At which point we go like this, why did you stop it?
Why is it important to keep your blood pressure low, Doc?
That's really?
Yes. I don't think people really understand. They feel fine. So
high blood pressure is a condition without symptoms that increases your risk of stroke. You talked about the 87-year-old woman and heart attack. Dramatically, and also other problems too, aneurysms, renal disease, eye disease, but primarily the risk of heart attack or stroke increases, exponentially with high blood pressure. So it's very important to control it over time.
So what if you forget to take your medicine?
Okay, that's a good question. Say you typically supposed to take it in the morning, and most of the time you could just take it in the evening, and it's okay. Or if you miss it for a day, you miss it for a day. Take it tomorrow. All right?
Yeah.
But, look, people have side effects. For example, cholesterol medicine. A lot of people feel it causes achiness in their muscles. So first, I do want to know. And I usually say, okay, fine, stop it for 2 weeks. And let me know if you feel better. Or I might tell them to take some enzyme CoQ10, which can offset the symptoms of cholesterol medicine. If they stop it for a couple of weeks and they don't feel better, it's hard to blame that on the medicine. So, but you should communicate any side effects to your prescriber.
Why does high blood pressure, the incidence of high blood pressure increase as you get older? Why is that the case?
I don't know if we understand that. I mean, it used to historically be called hardening of the arteries, but that was maybe an explanation that makes sense of it. Some of it has to do with kidney function. Kidneys have a very complicated role in regulating your blood pressure. So as time goes on, the kidney function goes down, and that can kind of start a cascade. The walls of the arteries might be getting a little bit stiffer, similar to hardening of the arteries, some calcifications. It's very, do an x-ray for whatever reason, you can literally see calcifications on the aorta or whatever. I just don't know. It's probably has a very complicated answer. There's probably more explanations.
It almost seems like your blood pressure should go down as you get older.
Right. Well, some people will have low blood pressure. Occasionally lower body mass type individuals will have low pressure. And it's also another point is that as you get older, you're right. That's why you should have checkups. Maybe the blood pressure dose is not appropriate anymore. Maybe now your blood pressure is 100/70, and that dose that made sense 5 years ago is too much for you now. And then that, one of the principles of geriatric medicine is to try to pull back. So it's kind of, we joke about it, right? We spend the whole life putting you on meds just so when you're a certain age, we start trying to take you off all the meds. But polypharmacy in the elderly is kind of a big topic, and people should be on as little meds as possible.
As they get older.
It's whenever I see someone for a checkup, like a Medicare wellness visit, part of that includes a review of your medication. And there are plenty of times where I say maybe we should stop this one. You're 98 now. Maybe it's not. Who cares what your cholesterol is? We could stop your cholesterol medicine. Even then, that gets a little complicated because people with a history of heart disease or stroke are supposed to stay on their cholesterol medicine. Even if they're super elderly. Well, Robin, that brings us to the end of this morning's show.
It was really good.
All right. Dan, I want to wish you a good week. And next week, I'm rounding up a secret guest.
I love the secret guests. guests.
Even the Masked Singer, that TV show, is going to be the masked guest. We're gonna
Masked guest.
wear a paper bag, and we'll guess who they are at the end of the show. All right, Dan, we'll see you.
Thank you.
All right.
And thank you very, very much, Dr. Eric Stanberg and Robin Baker for this day's Medical Mondays. This last portion of Kingston Community Radio was brought to you by Ulster Savings Bank and many locations throughout the Mid-Hudson Valley, one near you. And this is Monday, August 9th. 70 degrees right now, still here in Uptown Kingston. And thank you for sharing the morning with us and being with us here at KCR, Kingston Community Radio, AM 920 and 92.5 FM, and our live streaming on mykcr.org. And again, thank you, Dr. Dr. Eric Stanberg and Robin Baker for today's Medical Mondays. And until tomorrow, Tuesday, 7 a.m., we wish you every success in growing and developing Kingston and all our neighboring communities. We now return you to Magic 92.5.